Than 3,000 years ago, a giant volcanic eruption buried the city of Akrotiri on the ancient island of Thera, now known as Santorini, turning it into a time capsule.
It's the center of an active volcano?
In the last 2 days, at least 200 minor earthquakes were recorded in the archipelago, with the strongest being of magnitude 4.6 on the Richter scale.
If you thought this tranquil Greek island was all about picturesque sunsets and whitewashed villages, think again. Beneath the spectacular Santorini caldera waters, something vast and powerful is stirring. Scientists have detected subtle ground shifts, an uptick in seismic rumblings, and unusual gas readings, signs that a deep volcanic process may be reactivating. Once, Santorini unleashed one of history's most devastating eruptions. Today, many wonder if we're on the brink of another explosive chapter in this island's dramatic story.
Dozens of tremors have shaken the Greek island for a fourth day. Now, they've been recorded between Santorini and Amorgos since Friday.
The mysterious caldera and its storied past. Santorini, officially known as Thera in Greek, stands in the Aegean Sea as a sweeping reminder of how profoundly volcanoes can shape entire cultures. If you've seen photos of stark white houses perched on towering cliffs above an azure sea, you've glimpsed just one fragment of a larger geological saga. This island's iconic crescent shape encircles a massive caldera, formed by an explosive event so colossal that it altered not merely the island itself, but possibly the broader Mediterranean world. A look back reveals that Santorini was once no more than a single, roughly circular volcanic isle. But around the middle of the second millennium BCE, approximately 3,600 years ago, Minoan civilization flourished on neighboring Crete and smaller islands. Life hummed along in prosperity, trade, and cultural exchanges. Then, the unimaginable happened. Santorini erupted with a violence that tore its original shape apart. A large portion of the island collapsed into the sea, creating the flooded caldera we see today. Plumes of ash shot high into the atmosphere, drifting far and wide, even reaching parts of the eastern Mediterranean and beyond. This Minoan eruption, as it's known, may have influenced the downfall of the Minoan civilization.
Hundreds of earthquakes and tremors have been rumbling every few minutes in recent days.
If not through direct ash fallout, then possibly by triggering tsunamis and subsequent political turmoil in the region. Ancient texts and legends fed suggestions that the story of Atlantis might be tied to Santorini's cataclysmic transformation, though such claims remain in the realm of romantic speculation. Yet the basic reality endures. This was one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history. Ash layers and ice cores from Greenland to elsewhere confirm the far-reaching effects, attesting to the might of the explosion. For centuries, the memory of this cataclysmic event lingered. Early explorers described the island's crescent shape as proof of the mountain that once existed. But it wasn't until modern archaeology in the late 19th and early 20th centuries that deeper truths emerged. Excavations on Santorini's southern side revealed Akrotiri, a Bronze Age settlement astonishingly preserved beneath thick layers of pumice and ash, much like Pompeii would be centuries later in Italy. These findings illustrated the human dimension to Santorini's past eruptions, revealing art, architecture, and daily life frozen in volcanic time. In the present day, Santorini's rugged cliffs and caldera offer a scenic magnet for visitors from around the globe. But behind the panoramas lies a reminder that volcanoes don't truly die, they simply slumber. With hints of geological unrest, the island may be writing the next chapter in a saga defined by pyroclastic chaos and caldera collapse. The alarming awakening, seismic clues, and strange gases. In recent years, subtle but critical warning signs have begun to capture the attention of volcanologists studying Santorini.
Leaving most of their belongings behind, the island of Santorini is emptying. As hundreds of earthquakes, some measuring up to 4.5 on the Richter scale, strike.
Seismic networks around the island, part of the Hellenic seismic array, picked up a series of small to moderate tremors at shallow depths beneath the caldera. At first, these could easily be attributed to mundane tectonic processes in the region. After all, Greece sits in a seismically active corner of the Mediterranean, However, patterns emerged that raised eyebrows. Clusters of earthquakes were happening in swarms, intensifying for days or weeks, then quieting down only to return again later. These swarms, combined with elevated seismicity just below the volcanic complex, suggested that magma or hot fluids were shifting underground. Meanwhile, scientists monitoring Santorini's fumaroles, vents that release volcanic gases, focused on chemical analysis of those emissions. Small amounts of sulfur dioxide, SO2, and carbon dioxide, CO2, surface naturally at volcanoes, even during quiet periods. But spikes in such gases can be an indicator that magma is ascending closer to the surface, allowing more volatiles to escape. Indeed, over certain intervals, the ratio of CO2 to SO2 has shifted in ways that suggest a deeper source intrusion, possibly from a fresh batch of molten rock. While the amounts didn't skyrocket to crisis levels, they were enough to prompt heightened surveillance. Adding to the intrigue, the water in the caldera itself occasionally shows warm regions or subtle discoloration, phenomena that could be triggered by hydrothermal fluids mixing with seawater. Tour boats might unwittingly sail over hot spots hidden under the blue waters. The phenomenon is reminiscent of how other volcanoes sometimes reveal their internal unrest through changes in nearby springs or crater lakes. Santorini's local population, attuned to tremors, has grown anxious when clusters of tiny quakes roll through. Memories of the island's violent birth are never entirely forgotten. Hoteliers, restaurateurs, and local fishermen keep a cautious eye on news bulletins. After all, tourists are drawn to Santorini's dramatic vistas precisely because of its volcanic heritage. But should the threat level rise, it could disrupt both daily life and the island's vital tourism industry. The unusual geographic puzzle, subduction and tectonic setting. One of the features that make Santorini so intriguing is its position within the Hellenic Arc, a curving boundary zone where the African plate subducts beneath the Aegean microplate. In broader terms, one might label it part of the collision between the Africa and Eurasia plates. Typically, subduction zones produce chains of volcanoes, Indonesia, the Andes, Japan, where oceanic crust sinks below continental material. The heat and pressure experienced by the descending crust release water into the overlying mantle, lowering its melting temperature. As a result, magma forms and rises through cracks in Earth's crust, often culminating in explosive volcanic arcs. Santorini stands as one of the prominent volcanoes of this Hellenic arc. Others, such as Methana, Milos, and Kos, also have volcanic histories shaping the Greek archipelago. But Santorini's location near the center of the arc, combined with the structural complexities of the Aegean region, frames it as a special case. The African plate's motion here is slightly oblique, meaning there is not merely subduction, but also horizontal strike-slip components. This interplay of compressional and lateral forces fosters an environment that can store considerable tectonic energy. Adding to the puzzle is the presence of smaller microplates and fracture zones that dissect the region. The Earth's crust beneath the Aegean Sea is stretched, thin in places, and broken by numerous faults. Under these dynamic conditions, magma can exploit pathways to the surface in unexpected ways.
A lethal lateral eruption, devastating a much larger area.
Whereas some arcs have singular, more defined volcanic chains, the Hellenic arc fans outward in a somewhat chaotic line of submarine and subaerial volcanoes. That's part of why Santorini's explosiveness can catch even seasoned geologists off guard. The subsurface plumbing system might be a labyrinth of conduits, sills, and magma chambers stacked or offset within the crust. In certain ways, Santorini might appear classical, an island lab for studying typical subduction-driven eruptions. But on closer inspection, every subduction zone has its quirks. In the Hellenic arc, the downgoing African slab has variable angles of descent, leading to differences in how and where magma might accumulate. Also, the region is shaped by frequent earthquakes along other fault lines, like those near Crete or Rhodes. Each event can jostle the system, potentially opening or closing magma pathways. Even the shape of Santorini's caldera testifies to repeated expansions and contractions. Over the centuries, smaller eruptions built inner cones, like Paleokameni and Neokameni, on the caldera floor. That cyclical interplay of destructive explosions and constructive lava flows underscores a dynamic system that defies neat categorization. The bottom line? Santorini sits perched at a convergent plate boundary brimming with geological surprises, and the subduction engine fueling it remains very much alive. The hidden engine below, magma chambers, water, and mantle dynamics. Volcanoes like Santorini owe their energy to processes deep within the Earth's mantle. As the African plate sinks beneath the Aegean microplate,
the surface of the Earth, the crust, is comprised of a number of tectonic plates, which are constantly moving slowly.
Immense pressures cause water locked in minerals to be released. That water reduces the melting temperature of the surrounding mantle rock, creating a buoyant, semi-molten mixture we commonly call magma. Eventually, some portion of this magma migrates upward through faults and fractures, pooling in magma chambers at various depths. Seismic tomography surveys around Santorini have revealed anomalies beneath the caldera, regions where seismic waves slow down, implying the presence of partial melt. While not as large as the colossal magma reservoirs found at supervolcanoes like Yellowstone, Santorini's interconnected system of magma pockets is still extensive enough to pack a serious punch. These subsurface cavities can merge over time, building up tremendous pressure. A key piece of the puzzle is how quickly new batches of magma are fed from deeper sources. If fresh, volatile-rich magma injects into a chamber, it can destabilize the system, raising the possibility of an eruption. Water plays a further role near the surface. Hydrothermal systems develop when magma heats the surrounding groundwater to high temperatures, generating steam and acidic fluids that can alter rocks. Over time, these processes weaken the caldera walls and can lead to the formation of additional vents, covering the crater floor with small cones or domes. With Santorini's entire caldera partially underwater, these hydrothermal interactions also bring about abrupt temperature and chemical changes in the sea, occasionally producing floating mats of volcanic sulfur or warming up localized areas. A big question for geologists is, does Santorini have a big mantle wedge phenomenon akin to some subduction zones where fluid-laden slabs flatten and accumulate massive amounts of melt? Not exactly in the same sense as found in East Asia, but the principle remains. The subduction environment fosters a reservoir of hot, partially molten rock. In Santorini's case, the subducting African crust is older and thicker oceanic lithosphere, which can carry significant amounts of water. While we typically think of water as life-giving, in volcanic contexts, it can drive catastrophic explosions. Monitoring and warning signs, modern technology versus ancient stories. Given Santorini's tumultuous history, researchers and local authorities employ an array of modern tools to keep tabs on any brewing unrest. Today, monitoring a volcano is seldom confined to the vantage point of a single observatory. Instead, a network of instruments scattered around both land and sea collects vital data. Seismographs track tremors deep within the earth, revealing the telltale footsteps of magma.
As a geologist, we're looking at the seismometer, the impact of any vibration of how we read it.
As it cracks and deforms the rock on its way upward. GPS stations measure even minute changes in ground elevation or horizontal motion. If the caldera floor swells or a decorative cliff walkway shifts, satellites can often detect these changes within a few millimeters. Gas sensors at fumaroles and hot springs capture real-time changes in sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and other volatile emissions, which may signal a fresh input of magma. Seafloor sensors can detect changes on the submerged parts of the caldera, where quite a bit of volcanic action might occur unseen by humans above the surface. Scientists also rely on interferometric synthetic aperture radar, INSAR, a satellite-based technique that provides detailed maps of ground deformation. Periodically, images from orbit measure how the island's topography shifts over intervals as brief as a few weeks. Taken together, these diverse data streams give a near-synoptic view of physical changes that might signal magma injection or heightened volcanic activity. Historically, though, people in the region used more rudimentary methods to gauge Santorini's moods. Ancient mariners would notice steam plumes or fresh lava islets rising from the caldera, Oral traditions recounted times when the island shook violently, sometimes leading priests or oracles to attempt communal sacrifices or ceremonies meant to appease the volcano's hidden spirits. While these stories might sound archaic, they reflect the consistent interplay between Earth's geologic forces and the humans who live near them. Even in the 20th century, minor eruptions shaped islets like Nea Kameni, which formed and expanded during sporadic outbursts in 1925, 1928, and 1950. The challenge is that volcanoes do not adhere to predictable schedules. A flurry of seismicity might precede an upcoming event, or it could subside entirely as magma moves sideways rather than up. Santorini is much like a seasoned gambler, rarely showing a tell easy enough to interpret with certainty. That's why hazard plans for the region emphasize readiness over alarm. Coastal towns have established procedures for possible evacuations, and the Greek government coordinates with the Institute for the Study and Monitoring of the Santorini volcano, ISMOSAV, to keep the public informed when quake swarms or gas anomalies appear.
The rocks, older rocks from the volcano, and a lot of steam from melting glacial ice.
Could an unprecedented eruption be on the horizon? The million-dollar question for many is whether Santorini could once again unleash an eruption matching or surpassing the Bronze Age cataclysm that effectively sculpted today's iconic caldera. From a purely geological standpoint, the potential is certainly there. The subduction dynamics feeding magma into the island remain ongoing. Over hundreds or thousands of years, fresh pulses of molten rock can accumulate in upper crustal reservoirs, intensifying volatile pressures until a large release event occurs. Scenarios run by volcanologists envision multiple layers of possible outcomes. The more likely short-term possibility is that Santorini experiences moderate phreatic or magmatic eruptions, perhaps forming new vents within the caldera or gradually building up the existing volcanic islets. Such episodes, while less dramatic, can pose their own hazards: ashfall damaging crops and equipment, airports forced to close, or even localized tsunamis if flank collapses occur at the water's edge. But the greatest fear is for a larger-scale eruption that might approach the intensity of the Minoan event. A replay of that magnitude would ring alarm bells not just in Greece, but across the broader eastern Mediterranean. Ash clouds could disrupt flight patterns across Europe, hamper maritime shipping routes, and produce climate effects extending well beyond the region. We know from historical precedents such as Krakatoa, 1883, or Tambora, 1815, that enormous volcanic blasts can cause short-term global cooling, leading to crop failures and economic chaos. Santorini, with its geologic pedigree, is capable of that level of disruption. Fortunately, contemporary science offers hope for an early warning. A cataclysmic eruption of that scale generally requires a buildup of considerable magma volume over many years or even centuries. For it to reach the surface explosively, the system would almost certainly provide intense signals: ground deformation measured in centimeters to even decimeters, robust seismic swarms that intensify over time, and heightened gas flux visible from miles away. The challenge lies in accurately interpreting these signals amid the volcano's normal background: noise. At present, Santorini remains in a watchful but not critical state, with no immediate sign that a super eruption is imminent. However, the island's recent swarms and subtle ground changes prove that nature's cycles never truly stop. Healthy debate among experts revolves around whether these signs are short-lived fluctuations or heralds of a deeper stir. Meanwhile, local communities face the reality: living on the slopes of a geologically restless wonder means embracing both the beauty of the caldera's existence and the risk embedded in its fiery origin. Dr. Stephen Greer has just warned us that drones could be the end of us. From UFO sightings to secrets the government is hiding, Greer believes there's so much more to drones than we know. With his years of research and bold claims, he's convinced that extraterrestrial contact is real and that the government has been hiding it for years.
Government officials secretly gathered a team of scientists for a curious assignment. They were to investigate the crash of an unidentified flying object on the outskirts of Kingman, Arizona.
Are we on the verge of finding out the truth? In this video, we will look into Stephen Greer's warning that drones are just the beginning. Stephen Greer revealed alien secrets on Joe Rogan podcast. Dr. Stephen Greer is a well-known UFO researcher and advocate for disclosure who recently appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. His appearances have brought about curiosity and controversy among listeners who are surprised by different extraterrestrial phenomena discussed on the podcast and the government's secrecy around UFOs. One of Greer's episodes on the podcast, originally numbered 331, is no longer easy to find on mainstream platforms due to content restrictions. In his discussions with Rogan, Greer talked about alleged government cover-ups of UFO encounters, the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, and the advanced technologies that some claim are derived from alien sources. These topics attracted many viewers, and it led to even more speculation and debate about the existence of extraterrestrial life and its potential connections to Earth. Are these claims really true? And what other secrets has Stephen Greer revealed? Stick around because things are about to get interesting. The disappearance of Greer's episode from common platforms has led fans to hunt for alternative ways to access the interview. This has only added to the intrigue surrounding his claims and the broader discussion of UFO disclosure. Many listeners are now even more eager to hear what Greer had to say during his conversation with Rogan. Who really is Dr. Stephen Greer? Dr. Stephen Greer is a leading figure in UFO research and efforts to disclose government-held information about extraterrestrial life. He has spent his career investigating these phenomena and calling for greater transparency. Dr. Greer began his career as an emergency room physician, but later shifted his focus to UFO research, his true passion. In 1993, he founded the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and developed the CE5 protocol, which he claims allows humans to make contact with extraterrestrial beings. He has led many expeditions to try to connect with alien civilizations. Cisetti says pilots have reported seeing UFOs over 3,000 times.
Whoever can capture evidence of extraterrestrial life on your Ring camera.
And there are over 4,000 cases of marks left where UFOs may have landed. The group uses teams that quickly go to these sites to check them out. They also have a method to try and contact UFOs by using the mind. In 2001, Greer founded the Disclosure Project to expose what he believes are government cover-ups of UFO-related information. He has written books like Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge and Unacknowledged, an expose of the world's greatest secret, and produced documentaries such as Sirius and Unacknowledged, where he shares his research and theories on extraterrestrial life and government secrecy. One of his major efforts was the National Press Club Disclosure event in 2001, which brought together over 20 witnesses from the military, government, and corporate sectors. They shared their experiences with UFO sightings and alien encounters, gaining significant media attention and raising public awareness of Greer's mission. Dr. Greer launched the Disclosure Project in 1993 to discover and share information about UFOs and related government secrecy. Dr. Greer's appearances on popular platforms, such as the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, have further amplified the project's message. These interviews have exposed a wider audience to the concepts of government secrecy and potential extraterrestrial contact.
A former astronaut who spent 15 years with NASA says he came into contact, not with a drone, but another unidentified object last summer.
Even with controversy, the Disclosure Project has inspired other researchers and organizations to pursue similar goals of uncovering information about UFOs and alleged government cover-ups. During the podcast, Greer and Rogan discussed advanced technologies that Greer believes are suppressed by governments and corporations. Greer claimed these technologies exist but are kept secret, while Rogan questioned the evidence supporting these claims. The conversation touched on the potential impact of these technologies on energy, transportation, and space exploration. The episode received mixed reactions from listeners. Some found Greer's ideas interesting, while others were skeptical. Online discussions and social media platforms were filled with debates about the validity of his statements. Many listeners looked into the Disclosure Project and Cisetti after the podcast. Rogan's audience, interested in unconventional topics, continued to discuss UFOs and government disclosure long after the episode aired. UFO drone sightings in New Jersey. The recent sightings of strange, unidentified aircraft in New Jersey and other states have stirred up fresh questions and fueled conspiracy theories. These mysterious objects have caused a lot of excitement, with some imagining alien saucer crashes caused by extraterrestrial pilots who may have neglected to renew their licenses. The situation adds to the current mystery surrounding unidentified anomalous phenomena, commonly called UAP, and has sparked debates about what might actually be happening. There is confusion over what people are witnessing, fear about the unknown, and frustration with government officials who appear unsure of the situation. Meanwhile, lawmakers in Washington are demanding explanations, leaving many feeling uneasy about the entire issue. Jamie Jacob, who leads the Oklahoma Aerospace Institute for Research and Education, believes the situation is largely due to people not realizing how busy the skies are, especially along the eastern seaboard. Many don't spend time looking up at night, and when they do, they start noticing things they hadn't paid attention to before. While drone threats are a valid concern, and something that society is not fully prepared for, the current wave of sightings seems to involve the misidentification of piloted aircraft. The drones being spotted are likely operating within FAA night rules for drone pilots. In contrast, individuals involved in harmful activities would typically avoid using navigation lights to remain less detectable. Many of the sightings also appear to be caused by people mistaking commercial airliners and private planes for drones.
There's growing panic as officials admit they still have no idea who's controlling a squadron of drones flying over the state of New Jersey every night for weeks.
Without a clear reference point, it can be hard to judge the size and distance of objects in the sky, which has been supported by research on how both drones and piloted aircraft are identified. Some believe the drone sightings are genuine and involve drones operated by the government or private industry. According to Robert Powell, a board member of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, there are too many sightings, and the drones are too large to be civilian. He doubts any adversary of the United States would risk flying drones into American territory on this scale without a significant response from the government. Powell is confident that officials know much more about these drones than they are sharing with the public. He notes that this secrecy creates issues similar to those surrounding the UAP topic. Public anxiety grows, and people begin spotting drones everywhere, even when they may not be there. Powell also believes the media struggles to distinguish between drone reports and sightings of regular aircraft. He feels they often fail to ask the right questions of government representatives, which further clouds the situation. Powell argues that conspiracy theories thrive when governments withhold information or make vague, contradictory statements, such as claiming they don't know where drones come from, but insisting they pose no risk. He acknowledges that some of the sightings are indeed drones, though misidentifications of other aircraft are also common. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb believes many of these sightings are likely human-made drones, airplanes, or helicopters. He notes that the U.S. military typically informs law enforcement when drones are flown over residential areas, so unidentified drones must be operated by civilians or foreign nations. Loeb also points to the Chinese spy balloon spotted over the U.S. in early 2023. The balloon, nearly 150 feet in diameter, took a while to be shot down by the U.S. Air Force off the coast of South Carolina. Drone technology has advanced, especially in countries like China, and drones are widely used in conflicts like the war in Ukraine. Loeb emphasizes the need to determine whether these objects are a threat to national security and dismisses extraterrestrial theories as a distraction from intelligence and security failures. Could this be part of the government cover-ups Dr. Greer has talked about? What you're about to hear will blow your mind. Stephen Greer's theories and the impact of the Sirius documentary. In April 2013, Dr. Stephen Greer released the documentary Sirius, sharing his ideas about alien visits to Earth and government cover-ups. The film included interviews with people who claimed to have seen UFOs and showed evidence of alien technology. One of the most talked about parts was a 6-inch humanoid found in Chile's Atacama Desert, which Greer suggested could be proof of extraterrestrial life. The film also introduced his CE5 protocols, a method he developed for contacting aliens. Sirius sparked more interest in Greer's work and led to debates in UFO research circles about government secrecy. Shortly after, Greer participated in the citizen hearing on disclosure in Washington, D.C. from April 29th to May 3rd, 2013. The event brought together researchers. Share your opinions with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen, and you will enjoy it.